Hi, Paige here with m.a.b.e.l on this windy day in Philadelphia, and I've got some new quilts that I am excited to talk about with you today. I'll go through them one by one and point out some of the things that I really like about them, and I hope you enjoy this. The quilt behind me is called a double wedding ring quilt, and I love the sentiment behind double wedding rings because I believe traditionally they were made and presented to a bride and groom at a wedding, and the circles represent the joining of a union. This is a really special quilt. It's super soft, and you can I just love it. I love how the fabrics have faded, and I love the hand stitching on it. And I love the mint green and the pink in the middle where the circles meet. These are just really nicely done, and the stitching is really, really good on this. Clearly, this quilt has seen better days. It's got some ginormous holes throughout. Some of the fabrics are shattered, but other than that, you can tell that it was a well-loved and well-appreciated quilt. So I love finding double wedding rings because if I am able to make a garment out of them, they typically have this beautiful scallop along the bottom. It's just a really gentle shape, and I find it really appealing. This next quilt is a version of the log cabin quilt, and it's actually called like Courthouse Steps. But similar to log cabin, every center piece is in red, or in this case orange, which I really, really like. It's got these beautiful indigo fabrics that build out with the light and the dark. I think it's really pretty. I think this was a case of a quilt top having been made, but then someone either purchased it or at a later date did the quilting, because the quilting is done by machine, so you can see it's not quilted along every furrow. It's more intermittent. Also, the back of the quilt is a much more contemporary fabric. So, but I do love that the binding was applied by hand. So someone might have either purchased or found the quilt top and then, because these fabrics are old, but then worked on it to make it useful for their family going forward. I absolutely love the quilt that is behind me. It's a Cheddar quilt, which is the name for this really, really vibrant orangey yellow fabric like cheddar cheese. And they're hard to come by. I haven't been able to get my hands on one ever, so I'm super excited about this. These are 8-point stars, but the interesting thing about the stars were that it's done more in a string quilt or a spider web style than a typical 8-point star. I love how it's a little wonky and a little off. Really, really pretty, I think. I love how that's done. This quilt on the surface is in fabulous shape. There are no holes, there are no tatters. It's really, really pretty. But when you look at the back, you can see that some of the dye has come through. Only in this one instance, the blue dye has come through, and then the yellow dye or the cheddar dye has come through to the reverse of the quilt. Not that that's going to stop me from putting this on a bed, because I think it's really, really pretty. The binding too was applied by sewing machine. And I don't know if it's original to the quilt. The fabric feels of a similar vintage. So it could have been treadle sewn on. But all in all, a beautiful example of a cheddar quilt with this sort of string piecing or spider web piecing on the 8-point stars. Absolutely love it. This is a 4-point star or a hummingbird quilt. And you can see there's 4 points, or it sort of has the shape of a bird. typically in the Hummingbird or a 4-point star, the two of the patches will be the same fabric. And sometimes, and typically the way I've seen them, they've been in a solid with the other 2 points being in a print. But the reason I like this quilt is that it's really scrappy, and each of the points of the star is different. So I find that really, really special. And it's just fun to stare at the different fabrics and sort of imagine the lives they've led as either pieces of clothing or part of a family's history. Like this one is little ducks, and then there are the cute little ditzy prints, just really, really sweet. I also like this quilt because it has a knife edge binding, and I think I've talked about a knife edge binding before, but that's when the quilter folds in from the bottom, from the backing, and in from the top, and then hand seams them all the way around. So it's not the top folded over or the bottom folded up, but they're folded in on themselves and then hand stitched together. So that's really, really nice. This is a hefty quilt. Even though there's no batting in it, it's a summer weight quilt. It's really, really hefty, which makes me think this white fabric, there's something to it. It's not like a typical muslin fabric, and it might have been from feed sack cloths. Sometimes those feed sacks were actually really thick, dense fabrics, and that would lend its weight to this quilt. But all in all, this is a great example of a scrappy 4-point star, and I absolutely love it. So this is a new acquisition for me, this Drunkard's Path quilt. I love the Drunkard's Path. They are just so graphic. It just makes my heart sing, and I love the blue. This one is really interesting because it's got blues that have different degrees of being faded. So we have like this darker blue and then some lighter blues. Interestingly enough, with this darker blue is you can see that there are these regularly spaced sort of explosions in the fabric. I think that's because there might have been a print on that fabric in a dye that tended to do that with age. I don't know, I'm not a dye expert and I'm trying to learn more about it. So if any of you have any ideas, I'd be really interested in learning. Another one of the prints on this that I really, really like, there's this plaid or like a madras, really neat. And then a horseshoe down here. Some of these crosses and X's are really, really cool. So this quilt has a binding that might have been added after the fact, because while the quilt is hand stitched, and you can see the hand stitching right there, nicely done, the binding was applied by machine. So I have a feeling the binding got really tattered, and somewhere along the line, someone in the family decided to add a new binding, which is always nice to see that they did their best to keep the quilt in useful state as long as possible. But love, love, love this quilt. I just find it really, really stunning. This is a flying geese, or a variation on a flying geese. These triangles are considered flying geese. This was a remnant. It's not a full quilt. It was sold to me as a remnant, and you can see it is not in good shape. However, I do have a new bag pattern that I think this will look really, really cool in. So I'm gonna give that a try. Hopefully it will work out, but it is fairly damaged. It also has a little bit of dry rot around the edges, and so hopefully I can get something out of it. However, what I do love about it, love the blues, Love the hand stitching. It's nicely done hand stitching. So the quilting is also nicely done. Like her circles are really, really good. So I think if I can salvage enough of this, I can get a pretty neat couple of bags out of it, I think. This I think is called an apple core quilt, and you can see the shape of the patches and understand why. Really, really love the variety of fabrics in this. Some are newer. These strike me as being 60s, maybe even 70s, like that one, but some of them seem to be much older. So even though there are some older fabrics, the quilt is only as old as the newest fabrics. So if these were 70s fabrics, then the quilt was made in the 70s. This is a summer weight quilt. You can see that if you look underneath some of the damage, it goes straight through to the backing of the quilt. And there's quite a bit of damage in this one, but it's really lightweight. It would have been perfect for summertime. One of the things I really like about this, and you don't really see it from the outside as much, but when you look at the back, you can see how she changed stitching threads throughout. So she's got some of the black or maybe dark blue, some yellow, and some pink. So when you look to the front, you can then see, oh look, there's a line of yellow thread. There's a line of black thread. So she did take, the original quilter did take a lot of care with this, and it's really nicely done. Very pretty quilt. It's going to make some great projects, I think.